All right, everybody, welcome back to part 2 of this series on this Flutter map, which is a parking application, and we'll wrap it up in this one. So this will just be a two-part video series. When we left it like this. We had a map. We had a list of Google Places we had gone out and gotten from the Google Places API, and we had modeled. When we started up, you will notice a little bit of a red screen here as the places are loaded. So let's start by fixing that. So first things first, we just need to make sure that our places are loaded in our widget before we display it on the screen. So let's go to screens, search.dart, and above this consumer widget, when we display this column, we want to make sure that we actually have places before we display the column. So we will put a statement in here where places does not equal null. And we will display the, I got that backwards, not equals. So we'll display the column if the places are there, and if they're still loading, we will put a circular progress indicator. Like that. We want that to be on the center of the screen, so we can just use wrap with center like that. And that should get rid of that red screen that we had there, and it should keep our spinner going just a little bit longer. Great. So on the card, we want to display a couple of things. One of the things we want to display is the distance between the user and the parking lot down here. So we need to calculate the distance and display that here in the card. And so to do that, I'm going to go to Geolocator service, and I'm going to set up another function that will take care of that. So we'll call it getDistance. That will be asynchronous, and we want to use our Geolocator service. In fact, why don't I move this up here? And we'll change that to final. And we want to use distance between. There we go. All right, so we want 4 parameters. So we need the starting latitude and the ending latitude, starting longitude, ending longitude. So we will take a double. We'll call start latitude. In fact, I'm just going to copy this here. Bring it up there and put double in front of each one. That's lowercase. Double. There we go. Double and double. All right, and we are going to want to return that, and we are also going to want to await that, and that is our function to calculate distance. Why don't we also tag that, just to be clear, as a future of type double. All right, so then if we go back to our search widget and we find our card, so we're going to want to wrap our card in a FutureProvider so we can get that asynchronous operation for the distance calculation. So let's wrap the card with a widget, and that widget will be a future builder. And in our future builder, we need to create context and let's see. Do we have a geo service yet? We don't. So let's bring in the Geolocator service. Let's just call it geo service, and that will be a instance of the Geolocator service that we created. So geoservice.getDistance, and then we need to pass it our parameters, and our starting latitude is going to be our current position.latitude. Why don't I put each one of these on a separate line? And our start is going to be our current position. That longitude. All right, and then for our ending latitude, longitude, we want places, index, .geometry, .location, .lat. So we got to dive deep there for that value. Same here. Geometry, .location, .lng. Oh, I see. Duh. I meant to do FutureProvider, not a future builder. All right. Reformat that, make it look, well, I think it was prettier before, but anyway, that's what we're getting with auto formatting. And so now we can display the distance on the screen. And let's put that in the subtitle. So we've got our title here. Let's do a subtitle. And you know what? What I want to do is I want to have a row below the title that has the stars or the rating system. And then down below that, I want to do the distance. And so let's do a column. That'll have children. And so let's do the first child to be a row for the rating system. And so that will have children. And in there, we're going to put our rating bar indicator. And this is part of this package that we brought in here. It's the Flutter rating bar. So it's just a part of that package. So Flutter rating bar indicator. And the rating will be our places index .rating, and that needs a double, which is perfect because that's what we've got in our rating system. And then it needs an item builder. Which takes a context, which takes an index. And goes to icon, icons.star. And let's make that a color of amber. All right, and it takes an item count, so that's the maximum amount of stars that can be given. So we'll give that 5 because that's the rating system that Google Places uses. We'll give it an item size of 10.0. And you can have the stars go up or down or side to side. If I save that, I guess they're defaulted to horizontal, but let's just put direction axis.horizontal as well. All right, now that looks pretty good now, but you can see that we have an error down here, and that is because we do have some results, we found this out last time, that do not have a rating attached to them. So nobody's given them a rating yet, and that's why when we did our model, we left the possibility that user ratings total and rating would be null, or just wouldn't exist. And we said that we're going to make that a value of null. And so when we go to display that, we should check and make sure that that's not null. And if it's null, we just don't want to display this row because we don't have any stars to show there. So going back to search.dart, in front of our row, let's just stick a argument where we check if places index.rating does not equal null. And in that case, we're displaying this row. And then otherwise, we just want to display a row with nothing in it. Yeah, we want that there. Let's get that out of here. All right, I'm going to format that. And so then we get rid of our error here, so we can see we've got Union Square parking, which was giving us an error. Just now has nothing there because it doesn't have any ratings to it. So after the ratings row, we want to put how far away the parking lot is from the user. And so if we come down here after row, so we are within this column here, we can do another row. Actually, we don't need a row. We can just do a text after that would be fine. So we've got our column here. We're going to do another child of the column. And this is where we want to bring in the future from up here. This is our calculated distance that we set up as a future. So we want to do that with a consumer widget. And that consumer widget is going to return a double. And so we want a builder there. And so we're going to get context. We're going to get our dynamic value, which is meters. That's the value that we get back from our function. And then a widget. And we want to return a value here. So let's return if meters does not equal null. Let's return a text widget with, we'll do our address. So that's vicinity. And then we want to do a dot, and I am getting this off of Google Maps. If you pull up Google Maps, at least in Android, there is a like dot between places and the distance. And so to get that dot, I'm going to do a Unicode character. So U/U 00B7 backslash, I guess. All right, and then we're going to do $ brackets. I'm going to do it in miles. So you don't have to do it this way if you want to do kilometers. But I'm going to divide the meters that I get by 1609, and then I'm going to call that miles. And if I don't get a value in meters, I'm just going to return an empty container there. All right, we'll put the semicolon, we will save. And yeah, I mean, I could do a row here. I think what I'm going to do is just in my column, I'm going to do cross-axis alignment start. And that will move that piece of information to the left. And that looks pretty similar to the way that it looks in Google Maps. Maybe a little space between the title and the star would be good. So I think what I'll do is after after the text, and inside the column actually we'll do down under here, we'll do a size box. I think 5 is height of 5. This should be enough. That should give us space there. I don't feel like the stars. Maybe a space there too. Let's do it here. Size box. Height, I'm going to do a little less there. I'm going to do like 3. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, so that's the left side of our card, and the last piece we want is to just have a icon right here for directions to that parking lot. These are all very close. Yeah. I do it in my rural area, and they're like all 20 miles away or more. So we'll do that with the trailing. So let's come down here after. This is all our subtitle here in our column. So after the column, we can set up a trailing, and the trailing is going to be an icon button. That's going to have an icon, which will be icon of icons.directions. And we will do a color with a theme of context.primary color. And on pressed, we'll just leave that blank for now. Hit save, just make sure we like the way that looks. Looks pretty good. All right, so when it's pressed, we want to pull up directions in Google Maps, and we can do that with the launch URL package, which we install the URL launcher right here in our pubspec.yaml part of part 1 of this video series. And so let's do that down here in a helper function. So inside of the class, but after the build method, let's build a function called, well, it'll be a void. We'll do underscore launch maps URL, and that will take a double of latitude and a double of longitude LNG. All right, and that is asynchronous. And we will give it a final URL, and that will be equal to https://www.google.com/maps/search/API equals 1 and query equals, and this is where we'll put our dynamic values. So we will put a $sign and lat, a comma, a $sign and LNG, and that should be that. So just double check, make sure you type that correctly. And we'll set up an if statement. If await can launch URL, then await launch URL, else throw could not launch URL. Just make sure we get URL launcher imported up here. It comes in, auto imports when if you come over can launch, but it's package URL launcher /URL launcher.dart. All right, so then we can put that in our onPress method. So right here, we'll do launch maps URL. And we're going to pass it for a latitude. We will pass it places, index.geometry.location.lat. And then for LNG, we are just going to do, I can't type that again. Let's just do that. All right, I will auto format that and get some wrapping. All right, and so if we click on, it moves slow on the emulator, but if we got the URL correctly, it should bring up Google Maps. Our place should be preloaded, and we should be able to hit directions right there. So there we go. All right, excellent. Moving along. So the last thing we want to do is we want to put markers on the screen for each one of these parking lot locations. And to do that, again, to save space here, I mean, this is getting pretty verbose, so let's build us a service that does that for us. So we'll go into services, we'll do a new file, and we will create marker_service.dart. And we'll do class marker service. And we really just want one function here, and that is to return us a list of markers that we can pass to our Google Map object. So let's give ourselves a getMarkers function, and that will return us a list of type marker. And we're going to need to import marker from Google Maps. All right, so we're going to have a markers variable, which will create a new list of markers. There we go. And so we're going to want to go through each one of our places and create a marker for that and add that to the list. So in our inputs, let's add a list of type place. I can call that places, and we'll need to bring in our place model. Go. All right, so then we can do places.forEach and start to cycle through there. We will create a name variable called place and open up curly braces. I'm going to throw my semicolon at the end here so don't forget. And so for each one of these, we want to create a marker. We want to add it to the markers list. So a marker, we will call marker, and that's going to equal a new marker with constructor values. So the marker ID is a unique ID for the markers. So I'm just going to do marker ID place.name. We can do draggable. That's going to equal false. We can do an info window if we wish. So let's do that. Info window. The title of that will be the place.name. And the snippet will be the place.vicinity, so the address. Snippet : place.vicinity. There we go. And the position, of course, will be a lat longitude variable or item, and that will be place.geometry.location.lat and place.geometry.location.lng. that semicolon down here. All right, and after we create the marker, we want to do markers.add marker. And then at the very end of this function, we want to return markers. All right, so that we can pass that our places. It's going to build our markers for us, and then we can put those on the map. So if we come back to search and we locate our map, which is right here, there is a markers property. And it doesn't take a list, it takes a set. But you can make that happen by set of marker type .of, and then you can give it the markers, which we haven't pulled in yet. Got enough colons there. Yeah, okay. All right, so then we just need to pull in our markers. So let's do that as soon as we have the places, which is in here. So we'll bring in our marker service. And inside of our build method, we want var markers equal to, and if the places is not equal to null, markers is going to be equal to our marker service get markers, and we'll pass it places. Otherwise, just give us a empty list of markers to start. All right, hit save. Markers appear all over the screen. Okay, so that's good. We have info windows on each one of these, so we can actually get the address just by clicking on them. But I think these markers look a little hacky. I mean, it's the default Google marker, and this would look a lot better if it was something that was custom or looked more like a parking lot symbol than just a plain marker. So let's create our own marker icon to put in place of the red marker that you get by default with Google. And to do that, you're going to need a graphic image, and I'm going to put this in the description down below in YouTube. We're going to need to pull that into our assets. So let's stop this, download that asset, and we're going to want to go to our pubspec.yaml file, and we're going to want to make this aware that there are assets that we want it to read. So I'm going to undo the comments here, and I'm going to do I'm going to do assets images / so that it gets everything inside the assets images folder, and I'm going to need to create that. So let's create a new folder in the root called assets. And then inside there, we want a folder called images. And then in images, that's where we want to drop that resource that I'm giving you down below. There we go. So it's a blue circle with a white P in it, which means parking where I'm from. You're welcome to put anything in there you want. And to actually use that as an icon in Google Maps, we are going to need to put it through a process where we take it to a bitmap descriptor. And that is a feature. And it's a feature that's going to be kind of resolving it. The information down here is going to be dependent on that feature being resolved. And so I want to actually go to main.dart. And I actually want to do it in this chain of events here. I'd like to set up this get location. I'd also like it to be converting that image into a bitmap descriptor. And I want to put that into my proxy provider. So I'm going to create another FutureProvider. And I could create a service for this, but it's pretty minimal. So I'm just going to do it right here. So we want to create, we want a context. And instead of the arrows, I'm going to do a curly braces. And in my function body down here, I'm going to put return bitmap descriptor from asset image. And they're going to pass it the asset name of assets / images / parking icon.png, which is what I have here. And it's going to want some configuration. So above that, I'm going to create a var. Actually, I'm going to create an image configuration called configuration. And that is going to be equal to create local image configuration. Context there. Let me put a comma there. Okay, so we've set up two features here that are resolving it at various rates, and we want to pass them to the proxy provider. We have passed our position here. So to get a second value passed in here, there is several proxy providers, and there's one called proxy2 that will take 2 inputs, and there's proxy3 that will take 3 inputs, and so on and so forth. So my position remains the same, but in the second input, which I now have because I've switched from ProxyProvider to ProxyProvider 2, I am going to put a bitmap descriptor. And then down here, context, position, and now there's a new one where I'm going to get an icon. That's what I'm creating right here. I'm going to call that an icon. So now that I've done that work, I've created that bitmap. What would be easiest for us is as we cycle through each one of these places to create a marker, that icon that has been already converted to a bitmap is readily available to us as we iterate through the list of places. And so what would make that easiest is if we made the icon part of our place model. And so let's go to models and let's go to place.dart and let's add a new field called, it's a bitmap descriptor, and it will be our icon. And we'll need to add that field to our constructor, so this.icon. And then down here, we no longer want to end after geometry with a semicolon. We want to add a comma, and we want our icon to be equal to the icon, which we can pass in through here. So when we pass it parse JSON, let's pass in a bitmap descriptor when we create our item. So we've got an icon, and we will set that equal to icon. So we walk that up the chain. Where are we going to pass this in when we create our places? Well, that's in our places service. And now, rather than just passing it a place, we also want to pass it the icon. And where are we going to get that? Well, that's going to be when we create our get places. So up here, we want to have a bitmap descriptor called icon that we pass in. And where are we going to pass that in? Right here in our main. So we're just going up, swimming upstream here. We've got our icon. And hopefully that all made sense to you. So we create our bitmap descriptor right here. We pass it into our ProxyProvider. It goes to our get places service. While this is reaching out to get places and it's creating a place for each one in our model, we're also passing it the icon so that when it builds a place object, as it does here in the model, each one of those is going to have a ready-made icon that when we cycle through in our marker service, we can attach to the marker. All right, so now that we have that, if we go back to our marker service, we can add, let's say, just add it after draggable. Let's add an icon. And now in our places, we have an icon object that we can grab to do that. All right. So we need to restart because we had stopped it for the assets. So let's restart that. All right, there it is. We got our nice blue P. Looks like a nice little parking lot to me. There's a little difference in the size between Android and iOS if you run it on the different devices, so you can change your asset or modify it as needed. But here we go. We've got all these. These are in order of proximity. I wish I had a better location I could give this to. I suppose I could open up the emulator and change the settings to it, but we think this works. If you're actually using this on your own device, you should get better values to actually rank this by the distance. That should get you more than 0 miles there, but you can get directions to any one of these places. You can see the ratings. Pretty simple interface, but an awful lot going on here. We use Google Maps. We created custom markers. We use ProxyProvider. We use Geolocator. We calculated the distance between all these. So awful lot of skills here that hopefully you can find use for in other apps. So that's going to wrap up this project. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe, help me out there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.